All right. All right, guys. So today I am going to start with a video, and it's kind of interesting. I'm just going to play it, and then we're going to get some feedback, and we'll talk about it. So here we go.
Mr. President-elect, go ahead. Can you say categorically a question? Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
You're attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
You are fake news. What do you think about that?
I think that the average person that's really curious is sick of all this. And basically there's all these smart people. They might be Democrats, they might be Republicans, they might be independents, but they're sick of all this vitriol and people yelling at each other and turning on the news every night and exactly what you just saw.
Yeah.
And I think the average person just really wants to understand what's happening in the world in a fact-first way. And they're sick of all this other stuff that gets in the news. I think it comes from both sides too.
There's a lot of minutia, I would say. And just to kind of give you guys some reference, that is when the term fake news was coined by the one and only Donald Trump. So yes, but I think that speaks volumes, because you're right. There's so much information out there now, and we're just like, oh my gosh, like where do we even, what's real, what's not real? And also in terms of the information, like who's providing this information and what is their perspective? So today our subject is bias, but bias is important because it's where the knowledge comes from that kind of creates this idea of bias. So guys, I'm here today with a guest, and we're starting our podcast. Welcome to Alia & Co., the podcast where we talk about complex things and we break them down and we make them simple. I am Alia Kizilbash, and today our guest here has some perspective on the news. Some perspective. So his name is Tim Huelskamp. Welcome so much.
Thank you so much. Super honored to be here with you and looking forward to this.
Thank you. So tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm Tim Huelskamp. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 1440. We're a knowledge collective for the insatiably curious. So we have 4.5 million readers that we help them keep informed and inspired every day by curating all the news in a daily newsletter and shipping out to them first thing in the morning.
Ooh, I like it. So the use of the word insatiable is kind of interesting. Some people are insatiable. Yes, they admit to it. We're insatiable in terms of information, and also kind of like finding that information in a systematic way where it's like, let's find out where it came from, the backstory, the context, all of it. But then you have society that is just consuming information in a brain rot kind of way. So tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So the whole reason we started 1440 was because of this information overload problem you mentioned. I was working at a $20 billion publicly traded private equity fund, and my co-founder is a PhD scientist who's working on Capitol Hill. And we're both like super curious. We love learning. And to your point, it's just too much knowledge to take in. And then a lot of that knowledge isn't always truthful, or is trying to have a motive behind it, or trying to get you to think a certain way. So we were just frustrated consumers ourselves. Like, we're not from the news space. We're not from the media space. But we just said, like, why is it so hard to wake up every morning and understand what's happening across all the different verticals? So, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening with like CRISPR developments, what's happening with the latest company IPOing, and even fun stuff like fall foliage schedules and Michelin stars. We felt like there was all this information all over the place across all the different verticals. And if you're a curious person that loves to learn, no one helps you bring it all together in like a really efficient way. That was our first pain point. And then the second one was just, as you mentioned, all this left versus right and vitriol and fake news and opinions and trying to get us to vote a certain way or think a certain way. And we just said, why isn't there a place where someone can deliver that 1-2 punch of, we call it comprehensive and fact-first news? And we looked for it for a long time, couldn't find it. So we just built it ourselves back in 2017.
Yeah. I love that, because I think it's always kind of like the fairy tale of the founder, right? Where it's like, I have a problem, and it's a fairy tale that comes true when you put the work into it, you know? And it's like, we have this issue, we have a problem. Why can't we find a solution? You're like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to create the solution because it's not out there, and there's a need for people to have it. So I want to get into all of this, but before I start, there's something really interesting that you told me. You slept under a desk before, right? So tell us why and how, and it's in a work situation, you know? So kind of curious, like that's a different, like kind of like a, you know, pulling back of the curtain type of experience. So tell us about that. Why were you sleeping under a desk?
Yeah. So luckily this wasn't last night.
Okay.
This was years ago. But so after college, I did investment banking.
Okay.
So I did that for about 2 years, did IPOs and mergers and acquisitions for technology companies. Mm-hmm. And back then, that was 2005 to 2007. That was kind of like the heyday of, well, depending on your definition of heyday, the peak of a lot of investment banking. So we worked like 100-hour days as analysts and basically would work on pitches and accretion dilution analysis and sophisticated analysis for the CFOs. And as part of that, you got worked very hard. Yeah. So you went into it knowing that you would work 100 hours and sometimes have to sleep under your desk and sometimes only sleep a few hours a week. And it was like a really tough experience. Right. To be fair, I think what I was grateful for is you get a pretty awesome understanding of business at a very high level. So you understand like when you're 22, why companies merge, how they raise capital, why they take market share, et cetera. So it was a great learning experience for me. And you do it for 2 years, knowing that it's only for 2 years and then you'll go do something else. But yeah, it was a really rough environment where we had to sleep under our desk quite often and, didn't have a lot of time to spend quality time with friends and family either, but kind of went into it knowing it was like a boot camp environment where if you did a great job, you would get that expertise and then potentially go to what they call the buy side, which is private equity, venture capital, hedge funds, which I was lucky enough to get a position in after doing my 2 years of boot camp under the desk.
Under the desk. But the funny thing is though, you have to be a certain kind of young person. I mean, in your 20s, knowing that this is going to be valuable knowledge. I mean, that's for a 20-year-old to know that. I think that's really important, especially then headed into kind of like an institutional space like private equity or, venture capital, whatever. I mean, that says a lot about you. I mean, because it seems like you're just a generally curious person. Are you?
Try to be. Yeah, try to be. Yeah, I think what was cool about the investment banking thing. So when I was doing that at the end of in college, 2003, 2004, that was kind of the hot job coming out of college. So I think today it might be like starting your own company. And 5 years ago it was like going to Google or a big tech company. I think over time it's changed. In the 80s, it was going to work for Procter & Gamble and learning how to build a product and become a CEO one day. Oh, right. So I think there's different, for like the business school kids, there's different like goals they're searching for. And when I was doing it, everyone wanted to get into investment banking. I don't think they understood what it entailed on a daily basis, right. But I think I was very intrigued by it. And like, again, you always knew that you do it for 2 years. And then if you did a good job, you could go do something else, but it gives you this really cool training ground for that. But yeah, it was a tough decision, but I think I did enough research on talking to people who had done investment banking. They said it's worth it for your long-term career, even though like you make a short-term sacrifice. But I mean, if you look at like what doctors do, right? They basically, I'm not saying what investment banking is anywhere near medicine, but doctors do the same thing, right? Yeah, they have crazy schedules. Yeah. They work 24-hour days. They kind of grind it. I don't think they should be doing that all the time, but I think like in certain paths in life, there's these obstacles that if you put the work in, you're curious, you're gritty, you show that you can, rise to the top of your occupation when you're at a young age. I think it could serve you down the road.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, but you did have a house to live in, right? Like you were just sleeping in like.
Yeah. So I went home and slept in an apartment with some buddies, but it's funny. Like I was in Boston at the time. There's stories of people in New York City that actually like didn't pay rent and would just sleep at the office and like go to the gym and shower.
Really?
I don't know if it's an urban legend, but there was stories of that happening. Yeah. But I would go home. Yeah, almost every night.
It's probably bigger than their house. I mean, considering they have 300 square feet of like closet that you live in.
Yeah, and free granola bars and unlimited coffee and showers. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people had like literally beds, like blow up beds that they would use. Oh, which is crazy. It's changed quite a bit since then. Yeah. Like in the last, I think like 10 years ago, like Goldman Sachs was like a leader in this and making sure that the analysts actually got to go home and do some relaxing in the weekends.
No, amazing. But that's an interesting experience though, because like, coming from this finance related space, it's very structured, a lot of precision. But then you head into a very like human news, which is unpredictable and scattered, like, I mean, and I think that it's like, I mean, how did you make that change? How did you decide that, okay, and I'm sure that, your first experience definitely helped you in terms of starting a company, but why the news? Like, I know that you were kind of mentioning it, at least, in terms of like the need and the problem, but then how did you just jump into something like that?
Yeah. So after investment banking, I did private equity for about a decade where we invested in rapidly growing companies and I got to see how these companies scale and how they take market share and get very large, which is a really cool experience. Did that for like almost a decade. That whole time I've been very entrepreneurial, even in my younger age. I think I was selling pop, as we call it in the Midwest, on like the bottom of my parents' driveway. And then I had a CD burning business in high school that probably was illegal. But I think we're past the statute of limitations.
What was it?
I just bought one of those CD burners for like $100, and then I had like 200 songs and would pass out a sheet, and you could like circle the 15 songs you want. I would make you the disc.
Wow.
I actually made quite a killing doing that. Not a killing, but a couple $100, I think, doing that.
Laid down a pretty good framework of that. It's like choose 15.
Yeah, we it's some Tupac, some Dave Matthews Band, whatever was pop. OAR, I think, was popular back then.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, people would just pick their songs, and it was like pretty good little business model. But
did you charge for?
I think it was $10 a CD, and the margin was like 90% or something like that. So it was pretty good. Yeah. But so my whole life I've been very entrepreneurial and love exploring business models. I nerd out on them and just understanding like how companies are built. And I think Richard Branson always says, at the end of the day, companies are things that help people like live better lives. I don't think every company always lives up to that promise, but if you think about it, it's like a service that helps you live a better life. And I really like understanding what those services are that help people.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just studying businesses constantly. Like when I was in the private equity world, I was like tinkering with ideas on the side and looking for companies to launch. And then basically as that chapter in my life ended, a larger private equity firm acquired our business. And basically I had this fork in the road, which was go with my existing boss to start a new private equity fund, which would have been a wonderful life decision. But also like they gave me an exit package because we were all let go.
Right.
And basically I looked at it and I said, I'm 32, sat on a bunch of boards, seen a bunch of companies scale. I'm deeply passionate about entrepreneurship and business models. If you're serious about starting a company, like here's your chance. The universe is giving it to you. Do you really want to start a company or not? And I had like a really cool thought process for a couple of months. And I said, I want to give it a shot. And that's what led me to start actually another company before 1440. And then I was kind of messing around with a few different ideas at 1871 here in Chicago, which is like our startup incubator. And tinkering with a few ideas. And then while I was in there, I really fell in love with this problem of what we're building at 1440.
And that's interesting because it's like the business component that you've been conventionally trained in. But then there's a certain like kind of domain expertise with things that you enjoy, like the news, consuming information and being curious. So I feel like you get the best of both worlds because you're learning every day. It's like, whoa, that happened. Which is completely, so it sounds like a fun thing and relevant to a lot of people. You started though now in this, like in your business with 78 subscribers.
Correct.
Somehow you magically had them 4 million. So walk us through
4.5 million now.
4.5 million. Amazing. So that is awesome. But like, what is that scratch that you had to itch? Like, what do you think people were really missing? Kind of just because based off of like this virality, I would say, of this, this newsletter that you put out that is impactful. So what do you think they were missing? What are they starved, from in the news?
I think it's a combination of two things. It's what the market was missing, and then also the business model we built behind it that's led to a lot of our success. Actually, a third theme is hiring the right people. Like if you don't have wonderful people around you, my co-founder, everyone we've hired, you have to hire brilliant people. And like, this is all teamwork. If you don't have that, none of this matters either. But I think the first thing was back to my original point on like that 1-2 punch of, I think it was missing in the market, this comprehensive fact first news source. So we scoured the market, we couldn't find it. And we were just amazed by like, how does that not exist? How does someone not really help there? So it was that first, like the hole in the market, or like people call that white space. And yeah, we researched it deeply and we decided to send a MVP, minimum viable product, email out to 78 friends and family. My aunts, my groomsmen, some professors I had, right? Just like people that are really close to me, like me and Drew, my co-founder. And we basically said like, we have this thesis that this doesn't exist. I'm going to send you this email next week. Just read it like you normally would. We didn't want to overemphasize it. And what was really exciting is we sent that first email out with 78 friends and family. And at the time we were just doing it weekly to see if there was any resonance from the market. And when we went to send the second email a week later, we had 91 people on the list.
Yeah.
So I said, Drew, there's some signal in there, right? Yeah. That's a really good sign. And then similarly, we had a really high open rate.
Right.
The open rate is like the quality metric in the newsletter space. So we had a 65% open rate, which we still have today. So it's like, Drew, we have retention, growth, and engagement. This is let's keep going.
Yeah.
So yeah, we spent the first 6 to 9 months doing nothing else but focusing on that one product and understanding what the consumer really wanted and how we could build it for them.
Yeah.
And just like, if you look at our first newsletter, it's pretty close to what it looks like today. Like a lot of the DNA is there, but we made a bunch of iterations and just took as much feedback as possible from our readers. And now we have the product that's largely the same thing today. And then the next step was, once we had, okay, people really like this thing, we probably had 2,000 subscribers at the time, something pretty small. We said, how do we turn this into a business? And if you break down 1440, we do 3 things incredibly after hiring a team, right? Because again, that's the first thing that matters. We write a wonderful newsletter. So we have 4.5 million subscribers. We pour our heart and soul into the product every day. We curate all the news and knowledge from all different places. That audience is, a third of them have a graduate degree versus 10% of the United States. They're a third Dem, a third Republican, a third Independent to our fact first mission, like people from all walks of life. They're 50-50 male, female, and they're spread almost perfectly across the country geographically. So we write a newsletter to them. Because we have that audience that we like to say they like to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, brands want to get in front of them. So we sell ad placements to get in front, so they can get in front of the 4.5 million. And then the third thing we do, which I think is really important and not a lot of people talk about, is we're really good at what's called like unit economics. So we acquire a subscriber for a couple dollars, and then we reinvest most of the money back into the business to think long term. So if like Warren Buffett was building a business, he talks about this a lot, like the flywheel business model.
Right.
We just do those same 3 things over and over again. Write a wonderful newsletter, sell ads, take a majority of the revenue and buy new customers with it, and just do that over and over again. And like when we started, we were adding 2,000 subscribers a month, and today we add over 200,000 a month. Amazing. So that the compounding interest is the 8th wonder of the world, as a lot of people say, and it's the same thing. Just that thing keeps getting bigger, and our audience keeps growing. But none of it works unless you delight the customer every day and have like a wonderful like team to build it. But if you have one of these business models, you can get bigger and bigger.
Okay. So, trying to understand as you're hearing and explaining kind of the demographic of your business, where there are many different mindsets. So are you taking surveys to bring like different kinds of people from different walks of life? Or is there a standardization in what a person's mindset towards bias is?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we did not set out to build our audience a third when we started the product. That's what we wanted and our colleagues wanted. And then that audience came to us essentially. So they're attracted to us because they want that as well. So we're always amazed that we have, how do I say that the right way? Super fancy people in San Francisco that might think about the world one way. And then we have someone maybe like a farmer in Oklahoma or a doctor in Oklahoma that thinks about the world completely differently. But we think the underlying common theme there is curiosity. So like they're deeply curious. They want to learn. It's that same 1-2 punch that I mentioned earlier, where they don't have a lot of time. They're busy professionals. They're busy parents. They want to learn. They want to be inspired every day, and everything gets in their way and no one really helps them learn new things. And we serve that audience. And we feel like when you put that out in the world, you get all those curious people to read your product. And then as a natural extension, it fell out that was our audience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a really great point, because I think that specifically even with this podcast, right, there are a lot of like complex issues, not specifically like, oh, we're doing quantum physics today, but more so even a general topic like bias can get very complicated.
Totally.
So, but in just kind of drawing a parallel, just the way like technology has emerged so fast. So the people that know it, right? Like they're experts in the field, but then you have people that are using it, and then there's like a gap there that needs to be bridged. Are you basically bridging the gap between people who are curious and just not, maybe they don't have the time or I wouldn't say means or resources, because the internet is available to all. Maybe it's just like kind of like, I guess, maybe it's time to learn about a specific topic. Like, are you bridging that gap? Is that what it is? Is that for people that are curious, giving them more access to knowledge in an efficient way?
Yes, all day. And then on top of that, I would add, like, we have taste. We're humans. We're doing this together.
Right.
Our team loves learning, and they're out there right now working on tomorrow's newsletter, where they're scouring the internet looking for the most fascinating insights. And then we have taste as team members, where we know what's going to resonate with humans, and we find all that stuff. And it's like curation, you could call it, but also like discovery. So we're out there doing that hard work of finding all these awesome resources that a normal person might not have the time to find. And then we serve them to them on a silver platter in their inbox every morning.
Interesting. So there, I was doing some research on you. I mean, you and actually your company, and you've won some awards, right? So there was an award. I think the platform was, maybe I'm getting it wrong, Spore or Snore. It started with an. I mean, there are a lot of fact checking.
Oh, Snopes.
Snopes.
Yep.
Yes. It was but Snopes, and then there was another one where there are certain platforms. I mean, like I know, AI is my technology. That's what I usually kind of like gravitate towards. But I'm drawing a parallel because a lot of times there's a lot of like this fake, like AI generated content, and you can put it into certain tools to figure out whether it's fake or real, right? Yep. Is that something that, and they've given you awards for, the most fact oriented, non-biased, news source. So can you help us just understand more in terms of that whole basic unit of what is a fact and what is bias?
Yeah, it's a question we grapple with every day. And one of the things that we have to check all the time is every person has their own individual bias and biases. And so if I'm looking at an article or our wonderful editor-in-chief Sony is looking at an article, we see the world differently because we came from different places. But we think at the end of the day, it's delivering the truth on what actually happened and then stripping out all of the extras.
Right.
So opinion pieces are wonderful and we read them and we like them and it makes you expand your horizons. But I think the average consumer is a little fed up because there used to be the opinion section and then the news and knowledge sections. And now they've gotten intermingled too much where sometimes when you're reading articles, it's a motive or an opinion is deeply present in the news. And I think you see this a lot with the left and the right sources. They try to get you to see the things a certain way. And also, to be fair, I think a lot of people in the world have a worldview and they want to be fed information that's consistent with that worldview. So that's not who we serve. And we think that some people might call it infotainment. That's what that vertical is called. And I think what happened over the last 30 years is more and more share of the news and knowledge became infotainment, where people are being told what they want to hear, if you want to hear that.
Right.
But there's this growing, it's not in the middle of the country because it's not about left and right. It's just the people that are truly curious that are saying, I want to understand what facts are and I want to come to my own conclusions. I want to do my own research. And I don't want people constantly telling me how I should interpret things. So I think as this left and right and opinions and, there's so many places you can go to get opinions now. Mm-hmm. I think there's this growing populace of the country that's I'm sick of that. Mm-hmm. When I want an opinion, I'll go read it. But I just want facts delivered to me and I want to come to my own conclusions and do research. And one of the things we try to do is if there's a new, if there's a Supreme Court ruling, we'll put a fact-based summary of what happened, but then we also send you the document where you can go read it for yourself, right? And a lot of times what happens is people don't get past the headlines and if they're reading a certain thing, they'll just read a sentence and that'll be their takeaway. And we encourage people to say, here's our interpretation of the facts. Our audience is a third Dem, a third Republican, a third Independent. So we think we're doing a pretty good job. We can never be perfectly unbiased because that's not possible. But here's the source documentation. You should go read it yourself. Right. And we encourage people to go do that. And I think that's refreshing for people. And as this super polarized environment that we're living in, which I thought was the worst of us was behind us, I think it's getting worse somehow. Mm-hmm. Most people, I think it's the silent majority of Americans actually just want facts and want to come to their own conclusions. They don't want all this extra stuff. And so this is a growing market and then we're serving them.
Interesting. So the TikTok comment section is not a fact.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are, it's oh, I learned this and da-da-da. And it's where'd you learn that? It's oh, I saw it on TikTok. And it's just you hear that a lot, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's just kind of alarming.
And to your point earlier about Snopes, and there's some really wonderful agencies that kind of rate sources of knowledge to make sure making sure your information diet is healthy. And I think they do a really nice job. Our whole thing is if you're a busy doctor with 3 kids at home and you have a huge workload, I don't think that person wants to look at an article and then have to go look up if it's biased or not. Right. The analogy I use is imagine you go to Whole Foods or a grocery store and there's organic vegetables here, and over here there's non-organic vegetables, and they show all the pesticides. The average person doesn't want to look at them and say, oh, what are these pesticides? Can you just give me the organic vegetables? Right. It's the same thing. So like the reason people come to us is because we do that hard work. We strip out all the extra stuff and we say like, here's what actually happened yesterday. Here's a fact first approach. If you want to read an opinion piece, here's one. If you want to go deeper, here's the document. But we just strip out all those extras and allow people to just get to the crux of the matter. Right. And they really enjoy us for that.
Oh, absolutely. What are your thoughts on, let's talk about, say, for example, movies and Broadway shows. I ran into this. I direct Broadway shows, and since the advent of all of this technology, I think our attention span has really gone down as a society. So the way that they're writing these screenplays, they're writing it in a way where now the scene is changing faster because people can't focus anymore. Yeah. And it's the same with Broadway. There was I spoke with a director who was saying that yeah, we have to do that too. Like the intermission is it used to be before, it's like 2 hours and then you go, like you've done that before, where it's like, this is a lot, but we used to do it. Now, I mean, I saw The Lion King recently and it was just, oh my gosh, I was like, okay, great. That's awesome. And the scene was changing so fast. So is it kind of similar in terms of the way, and this explanation of the doctor and, in the small town that is it that also our society is just not paying attention and they just don't have the capacity to be focused on things too? Or maybe just there's a lot of stuff going on.
I think it's a combination of both of those things. I also think it's what we found doing our daily newsletter every day, and then this new product that I can tell you more about is, I think, so if you look at our daily digest, we have about 50 links in there, and we summarize what you're going to learn in every link. And then if you want to dive deeper, you can click on the link and go read it for 10 minutes. And I think what it is, it's people want to choose their own knowledge adventure. So what's really cool about our newsletter is when someone clicks, the people that click on a link every day, they click on 2.2 links, and we look at what they're clicking on. It's really amazing because they might come in one day and click on a politics link, and then a science link the next day, and a fall foliage schedule the next day, and the best Airbnbs in the world, and the next wine region in Portugal, right? It's all this different knowledge that I think what it is people, they care deeply about what they want to learn about, and they want that decision process to be really efficient. So that's what we do in our daily digest. And I think that's why a lot of like TikTok does well, Instagram does well, even like the AI summaries now, right? Like those long articles, it's like, can you just give me the crux of it? Right. So for us, we try to say, okay, instead of writing 50,000 words, because no one has time for that, we say like, here's these 50 ideas or concepts or pieces of knowledge, and here's like the key takeaway from them. And you can get a summary of them really quickly. And then if you want to dive deeper, you can do that. But by doing that, you're providing this menu of information and knowledge, and they get to learn 50 new things and then dive deeper on what's most important to them. So I actually think that's like the underlying thread that drives a lot of it. It's like these, I do think given technology and we're a busy society, that goes into it. But I think it's really just people want to choose their own decision around what they're interested in. And if you can help folks get to that as fast as possible, you can, you'll be rewarded for it.
I like that, especially because it's a selection, right? Yeah. You might be interested in one thing one day and then, something else that is the next day. So
we call it serendipity, right? Yeah. Like we have people all the time that write in and say, I had no idea that today I was going to learn about bioluminescence, right? But like in the 1440 newsletter, you might learn about that. And what is bioluminescence? And I know it's those fish that light up, but how does that work? And all of a sudden you're spending 10 minutes with us learning about bioluminescence. Right. And it's that serendipity where you're not sure what you're going to learn, but there'll be fascinating information and knowledge there.
It's a surprise every day.
Yeah. Steal that for our new tagline.
Right, there you go. Yeah. There you go. No, and it's fun. And I think just the way that I'm super interested because I'm like, I want to learn about, bioluminescence. But then maybe I do want to learn about, where to go on vacation or whatever. So no, it sounds amazing. One aspect to that, like specifically the way that people are finding information. I mean, with your platform, they're definitely coming to your platform, right? But the thing is that nowadays people are using a lot of these AI agents. Putting it into ChatGPT, it's still making mistakes. And then people are asking it things like, what's in the headlines, or they're doing it in a way where they're taking kind of like the way that ChatGPT works is like scrolling on scraping the web for information that can be very highly biased, and then coming in and bringing it into this agent and consolidating it, and then just releasing it for anybody to So fact checking, most people don't know to fact check an AI agent like that, or just to kind of like, where is it getting its information? It's not really, I mean, and then how is it also being chosen? Because from a marketing perspective, like, SEO, AEO, whatever, however it's doing it, right? Like it's choosing specific sources and why. And I think that people don't know about that. I'd love to learn, and hear your thoughts on that. And the way that at least people are reliant on that so much now, these like ChatGPT, like what does that look like in terms of how we find information?
Before I talk about the downsides of it, I think it's amazing. Like I use ChatGPT and Perplexity like multiple times a day. I think it's a really wonderful tool. I hope that it like solves cancer one day. I think like it has potential to and do some really awesome things for society. But to your point, it hallucinates quite a bit. We've seen some pretty funny answers. I think last week we were studying it said like George Bush invented Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So every once in a while it's getting better, but there's just some things that you need to do to make sure that it's like accurate information. And I think going back to my original point, at the end of the day, people just want a source that they can trust. And as long as you're constantly delivering fact-checked information and you build that trust with the reader, which takes months, if not years, they will come back to you. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things we do is about 10% of our employees are fact checkers. Okay. So every piece of knowledge that leaves our platform has been thoroughly fact checked. We also have the experience of knowing where the bad information comes from and just staying away from it completely.
Just sorry to interrupt, but what is fact checking? What does that look like? What's that process?
Yeah, so we have, so Teddy's his name. He is actually a former teacher. Mm-hmm. And basically every night before the Daily Digest goes out, he spends about 90 minutes to 2 hours looking at everything we've written in our document and making sure that it's backed by fact. Mm-hmm. Facts, excuse me. So he'll go in sometimes the articles will misquote like a year or a person or something like that. He's double checking all that to make sure that everything we put out is fact checked and legitimate. And
I know that you're talking a lot about context, right? I think a lot of times people don't really know what sources to go to. And this is where we want to lead into this wonderful project that you're working on now. But in terms of sources that they are trying to find, there could be like research studies or scientific studies, journals and whatnot, that have extensive kind of thought put into certain very niche topics. So tell us about this platform that you're building, what the big problem is, and how you're using kind of like these kind of accumulating information, but how and very systematically. So I'd love for you to tell us about. Yeah,
absolutely. So every morning, if anyone wants to subscribe, we'd be very grateful. Yeah. But if you subscribe to 1440, it actually still comes in my inbox if you reply to it. So I read all the emails. Okay. And one of the things we've noticed over the years is our readers tell us that they're learning about the daily news, and then they come across things like the gut microbiome, CRISPR, inflation, Burning Man, thousands of these topics where they're not expert in them and they want to learn about them. And they say, I don't really understand inflation. It's always in the news, and Fed Chairman Powell lowered rates yesterday. I don't understand it. It's so complicated. I want to learn about it today. And what they do is they go to Google and they type in inflation, and like typically what they see is a bunch of links that are SEO optimized that don't actually help them learn. Mm-hmm. They might go to YouTube and search for a video on it. It's like there's information overload. You don't know what's real, everything we've been talking about, right? And again, a doctor with 3 kids doesn't have time to be doing that. Mm-hmm. They're now using AI, which is an incredible tool, as we talked about. But even with AI, what we found is you have to know the right questions to ask it. So like, what is inflation? Then you start going down a rabbit hole. And what we found is what people actually really want is they want a guided experience about that topic. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're building. And what we've seen on the consumer side, that's what they want. And then because we've been curating knowledge for 7 years now, what we see is when our internal team is learning about these topics, like so use CRISPR, gene editing as an example. There is absolutely wonderful, brilliant content from like MIT, which have some of the best scientists in the world and some of the best content creators in the world that are creating like a 10-minute, 12-minute CRISPR 101 video that if you're trying to learn about CRISPR, it is the one thing you should watch, but it's on the 50th page of Google and no one can find it. So what we're trying to build, we call it 1440 topics, is on one side you have the insatiably curious knowledge seeker that's interested in this topic. And on the other side, you have all this incredible journalism and content that's being built by the folks that should get all the attention and they're not getting matched. Yeah. So even like Airbnb does, houses and vacation folks, they put them together in a platform. We're trying to do the same thing with all the best content in the world.
Yeah.
So
the hybrid you mentioned, the marriage of two things.
Yeah. It's kind of like if we said if Wikipedia and Pinterest had a baby, we need to figure out how to say it a little bit better, but that's basically what it is. So it's like, imagine all this awesome, you can go to Pinterest and look for loft photos and all the best loft photos are there, right? And then you can go to Wikipedia to learn about something at like an encyclopedia level. We want to bridge those together where it's like, I want to learn about venture capital today because 99% of people have no idea what it is. And they see it all the time in the news. We actually get these reader emails all the time where someone will say, I've been investing in IPOs for 30 years and I never understood how an IPO worked. And I came to your page and I finally understand it. And why is that? It's because we do almost like a little Wikipedia snippet. Like here's what venture capital is in 200 words and why it matters to society. And then what we do is we have human editors that go down the rabbit hole and find all this wonderful information that like is deep down in there, but you have to go do the work to find it. And we pull it all out and present it to you almost like in cards, kind of like Pinterest. Right. So you can say, on venture capital, there's this thing called the Midas list, which is like the top 100 venture capitalists. And there's this power law where 20% of the deals return 80% of the returns in venture capital. And there's the best startup cities in the world. And there's this firm called Bessemer Ventures that actually it's really awesome. They make fun of themselves for all they passed on Google and FedEx, and they have this page that shows why they passed on Google at the time. Interesting. And they're kind of like, right. So that's like fun content that you wouldn't see on a Wikipedia encyclopedia page. Right. So we think the best way to learn is basically go round up the 101 layer knowledge and then all these insights and like wonderful pieces, a podcast from a leading venture capitalist on how to structure a term sheet, a data visualization that shows how LPs and GPs, what that means and how carried interest works and how these funds are structured. So what we found is if you pull all that information together and kind of give someone 30 or 40 insights, where just like in our daily, they can choose their own adventure. We find that's the best way to learn. And so people come into their site and they're like, oh, that's interesting. I want to go deeper there. Or, okay, I understand what this concept means. I don't need to learn more about that. But they get to choose their own adventure and just go deep down the rabbit hole. But the whole time, they know that everything is worthy of their time. It's fact-checked by a human. There's no weird misinformation. There's no vitriol that you see on some of these social media platforms.
Elaborate on vitriol.
Say again?
Elaborate on vitriol.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you look at, let's use Reddit as an example, it's a really cool platform. You can learn a lot of things on there. And people, what's so beautiful about it is it's user-generated content. So people submit information, but that also means like you get crazy stuff on there. Like literally not like non-factual misinformation from like other governments is going on there.
Really?
Yeah. So it's what's so wonderful about UGC is like it's the knowledge of the crowd and people are putting up awesome information, but a lot of it is not real or worthy of your time. So what we're trying to do with this topics product, is how do we take the best parts of UGC and leave behind all the bad stuff? So the vitriol is not only the misinformation, but like those comment sections you see where people are arguing at each other and saying disgusting things to each other. Right. We just want to make sure that in our knowledge environment, when you come here to learn, all of that's gone. And it's just this pure knowledge learning environment where it's, again, efficient, fact check, trusted. I can come in here and I want to spend 10 minutes learning about venture capital. Right. And it's the best place on the internet to do that.
I love that. It's like kind of like a social media for news, but then like, you put in, for lack of a better example, Trump, you get comedy, but then you get, actual news, then you might get somebody else's like, ideas about a certain policy or whatnot. So are you saying is that it could be many genres within one kind of like idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, we're in Chicago here as an example. We're working on a Chicago page. So if you think about that, we're not trying to build the daily news, breaking news, what's happening every day in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's, I don't know about the city and I want to learn about it. Right. So like on our Chicago page, you might see things like a 12-minute video from Jeffrey Bayer on the Chicago fire, right? And then you might be able to see The Infatuation has a really cool article about the history of the Chicago style hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can explore like the founding story of Chicago. What is it, 1836? I should know that number, right? Mrs. O'Leary's cow, right? Exactly. So there's all this incredible knowledge that exists, but it's just scattered all over the internet and no one can find it. So we just want to pull all that foundational evergreen knowledge that is already out there, but it's not all in one place. And our humans go do that work. They find it and they put it in this ecosystem where, again, you can just choose your own adventure. So you might be on our Chicago page and you could do history, you could do architecture, you could do food, you could do the Chicago River, you could do skyscrapers. But when you're coming to the page, you see the entirety of all these awesome articles. And then again, you get to choose your own adventure.
I love that. And it kind of, just to draw a parallel, it makes me think of, and maybe this is the way that the news works as well. Say you have somebody that is writing mathematical theorems in a village somewhere on their own, but they don't get funded. So you will never hear of how they decided to defy gravity, or they're already doing it, but because, the ones that get funded are the ideas that come into existence. And drawing a parallel to Google, right? The searches on the first page are the ones that are getting paid for. The precedence, increases because of just the way that the marketing works. And then on page 50, which actually, I don't even know if there's a page 50 anymore. I think it's 10 pages now, right?
That's true. Yep.
What do you think about that as we segue into that? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to... I don't know if I could speak super intelligently to that. I'm not sure what they're doing.
Well, let's speak on it intelligently about it. I think that they're, kind of taking the data and just, trying to control it maybe, because all these bots are scraping the web, going to page 100. I'm not going to page 100, But also there's a lot of important information, just getting back to what you we're talking about there. So your idea, that sounds amazing. So you're getting information that perhaps maybe people don't have access to in some ways because they're not searching the deep searches, and they're getting robust information on a specific topic. So I really like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Between that, though, I feel as though, especially when it comes to the news, there's the rage bait, clickbait, this and that. I think that sometimes, even though we don't believe it, we will still click on it.
Oh, yeah.
So, so what's the fine line between keeping things exciting and having somebody want to click on something, but then also preserving integrity?
Yeah, so I've learned that it is so true. Rage bait and clickbait, we don't do it, but you could write articles in a way that will like triple or quadruple the number of clicks you'll get on them, right? Just like you don't actually say what's happening, you pique interest. A lot of times if you go after rage, right? Like, well, you'll never believe what's happening here. It totally works. Like we see it all the time with our links. We don't do it, but we see it all the time. And I think the way we're thinking about that is back to like kind of the infotainment thing. It's very similar. So I think like it used to just be like a small corner of the internet, just like the infotainment. It just got proliferated. And now it's like, we would get more clicks if we provided clickbait links, but that's not serving our audience. The audience wants the non-clickbait information. They want to come to their own conclusions. They want the facts. So by kind of like zigging while the bad guys are zagging, it's good for us, but we have to be disciplined and think long-term and build that brand, which we're doing. But now you have folks that, because we don't do clickbait and rage bait, they know that they can come to 1440 for the absence of that.
Right.
And they come to us every day.
Yeah. And that's important. I mean, I definitely want to be well-rounded when it comes to any topic that I am researching or speaking towards, I think that's amazing. So is this a product that is released? Is it something that you guys are working on right now? Or tell us about how can I use it?
Yeah, you can go to join1440.com and see it there. So we have about 250 to 300 topics pages at the moment. We're constantly rolling them out. We have 3 editors. We have a business and finance editor, Phoebe, a science and technology editor, Marco, and a sports, entertainment, and culture editor named Kevin. And basically every week they're going deep down these rabbit holes, learning about new things. So today our science and tech one was on lasers. It was on bioluminescence a few weeks ago. Our culture one was on Steven Spielberg, ghosts. It's just like kind of whatever like zeitgeisty.
Yeah, right.
And we just go down the rabbit hole. We learn all these amazing things and we come back up and say like, look at all this stuff that's going to blow your mind.
Okay.
And here it is, and choose your own adventure.
So let's choose an adventure. I'm going to say Burning Man because I have always wanted to go. I
Right.
hear these are the things I know about it. There is a statue and people put their traumas, write them on the thing. Maybe, I don't know. Lots of different kinds of camps. You might want to go with somebody very wealthy so that you can shower when you're there. But what do I not know about Burning Man
Yeah.
that maybe going into your platform might provide to me?
Excellent question. So I have not been.
Okay.
If someone wants to invite me, I would love to come. If anyone's got an extra,
Rich dude with a camper.
I'm in. Just let me know. I'm in.
Like 3 showers. That's the thing you're supposed to, that's what they say. It's like find the right person to go
Yes.
with, and then you'll be able
If you find him and he's got an extra one,
we'll go.
I'm in. So similarly, I had always heard about it and saw like, you know, the big burning thing and everything. So we have a Burning Man page. Maher, our awesome editor, built it probably 6 months ago.
Okay.
And so some of the things I've learned on that. So I was actually started in San Francisco, and I think in 1986, and moved to Nevada in 92 or 3.
Okay.
It's a 70-foot structure. The Black Rock City is organized in a certain way. It's all on our website. It shows you how it's built out and how they think about it. There's 10 core principles of Burning Man. I can't name them off the top of my head, but
1 or 2.
transparency, bartering.
Yes, bartering. You have to provide value in some way for bartering. It doesn't even have to be an item. It could be you're a connector, or I don't know, maybe you're just nice. I don't know.
Yeah. My hair is going to kill me for not knowing these, but so that's an example, right? So like you can go there and you can learn some of the things I just mentioned and many others. But then if you want to actually watch a video of the Burning Man getting lit on fire and see we have that video on there. If you want the playa is where all the art is. We have an assortment of pictures from all the different years of all the art that's on the playa. So you can actually go there and feel like you're in an immersive, go to our website and go through the playa and see all the artwork.
Yeah.
So that's an example of like, that's not something you'd find on Wikipedia.
Right.
It's something you'd find on Reddit or Pinterest, but like we want to pull that all together. So it's like, because learning about the 10 core principles of Burning Man and then walking through an immersive video of what the playa artwork looks like, they're both learning, but they're just different types of learning. And we want to be able to provide all those to the reader.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And you're right. A lot of these more niche kind of components are very you don't just find them everywhere, right? You know, and so my experience with Burning Man, not that I've gone, but I did go to a Burning Man decompress party in San Francisco.
I would take an invite to that too.
And it was pretty cool. I'm like, if this is like not even, you know, but it was so interesting because the artwork is highly unique, you know, like people are building these elaborate things. And I mean, I remember like one stall might be like people just going in, lying down in a tent, and people were doing like EMDR therapy, like or something like that. Like people just come with a lot of creativity. So it'd be really interesting, not just for Burning Man, but for other topics like that, to really get a well-rounded experience when it comes to a certain topic, which it seems that you're providing.
That's what we're trying to provide. And again, it's like, every person gets to choose their own adventure. So some people might watch the playa video. Some people might read the principles. Some people might read the history of Burning Man and the original ethos, but you get to choose your own adventure, but it's all learning. And again, every video you look at has been fact checked. It's real. It's worthy of your time. So even like the Burning Man videos, we probably went through, Maher can fact check this, which she does for us as well, but she probably went through like 10 or 12 of the videos to be like, these aren't good. This one's amazing. If you're going to watch one video, watch this one. Right. So now that's on our platform. And what does that do? That means all those other people that used to go through all the videos, sifting through them, don't have to do it anymore. Right. And we add all that value back to them. But like, this is amazing. Just watch that one.
Yeah. Sounds like we need to take Maher with us too.
Oh yeah. She would definitely, she's probably been actually. She's super cool. Yeah. She's probably been to Burning Man.
No, this sounds really amazing. So like, what else do we need to know about the specific product? I mean, you know, you have the newsletter, but this is something that we can now go into and we can use, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have a couple, I think almost 300 topics pages now. What we're rolling out shortly is basically just like Pinterest or Reddit user profiles. So you can save down things. You can not save them into a library, upvote them. We want the knowledge of the crowd. Again, not the vitriol of the crowd, but the knowledge of the crowd to help shape it.
Interesting.
We're also seeing some really cool. So we had our company offsite this summer out in Santa Barbara, California. And one of the things we did was we actually built a Santa Barbara topics page.
Right.
And then we went out to our community and we said, help us build this with us.
Right.
So we invited, I think it was about 50 readers from the Santa Barbara area to come hang with us at a wine bar.
Right.
And we said, please submit some knowledge to this page. And this is where it gets, as I said earlier, like the cool part of UGC, where like the crowd adds to it. So they basically submitted all these ideas that we didn't have on our page. And then our editor went through them, fact checked them all. And then the ones that were legitimate added them into the ecosystem. And then we all got together. We call them knowledge collectives, where we're trying to lean into the human knowledge. And we got together and basically talked about everything we'd learned. And one of my favorite things was there was this 70-year-old-ish lawyer who was so cool. And she was like, I've lived here for 40 years and I didn't know most of this knowledge about my own city. And it was like so wonderful to learn these things. So that's where we're trying to build this. It's this knowledge collective where people or fellow humans can submit information. But again, we control what goes into the ecosystem because we don't want the weird stuff to happen. But a reader can save, share, and submit knowledge.
Like a social media platform to some degree.
Correct. Yeah, it's got elements of a social media platform.
Filtered in a way that preserves the integrity of it.
Correct. Yeah, we just think you need to have a company or a brand that has like one view on the world, which ours is fact forward and like helping people be efficient, overlay all the content, and then let the people do everything else. But we think it's really important to have that first line of defense, that line of defense that makes sure only good knowledge gets into the ecosystem.
Right. And even to add to that, actually, from what I'm hearing, more so even than the collection of knowledge and, saying, okay, these are the ones that should make it or not. It's the fact that people trust you. I think going in there and not having that, you could be putting out anything, and, people might be, but if you have preserved the trust, I would say, which is a very human component,
Totally.
and it makes it great because in this society where technology is completely just, we're afraid that our jobs are going to go. I think preserving that human component is super amazing. So last point before we go, and I think that this is could be useful advice for somebody who might be just like absentmindedly scrolling. They might be like your user base, but if somebody's, even not on your platform and, how can one identify whether something is factual, non-biased, maybe it's like a reputable source in that way? Because, I was reading that there are even certain words that kind of like, should your spidey senses should go off, right? Like if it's used in a news story. So from your perspective and the fact that you are creating this space of, a wide range of individuals that are also sharing knowledge in a way that is genuine and accurate. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there's two ways you can do this. So one, you can increase your information diet. And then also you mentioned Snopes. There's a company called Adfontis Media that rates all the news agencies. We're dead center in that one. And you can see which ones you should stay away from that are like not actual real news. So you can increase your information diet, use all these tools.
What do you mean by increase your information?
Just make sure you're not reading the same thing over and over again. And you're like taking new perspectives, and also just making sure that even if it's reading something that is crazy, you get to understand, like, I shouldn't be reading that. That's not real. Like going through that trust process that you mentioned.
Right.
So I think door A is that the hard work of increasing your information diet and going to sources to make sure that they're reputable, or door B is just read 1440.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the one we should choose.
We'll do all the hard work for you. Right. And it's like, it's an honor we get to do it. We take it very seriously, and everything is fact checked, and we make sure that we try our best to check our biases. We're not perfect, but we're just trying to learn. Like, our whole team is curious people that love learning, and then they love learning and then sharing that knowledge with others. And if you break down what we do as a business, that's essentially it.
I love it. All right. Any last takeaways? Anything else you'd love for us to know about? Any projects that you're working on? Any ideas or things that you might have learned even from your own platform?
I think what I've learned building this company is a few things. Any project you work on, I didn't realize this when I started the company, but people told me it. These things take 5 times as long, 20 times the effort, way more money than you think they'll take. they're really hard to get off the ground, like any project or podcast or company. And I think what I've learned is if you don't truly love the work you're doing, it's like a waste of time because you're not going to have the grit and determination to get through the other side. So you mentioned this earlier in the call, but I think one of my favorite parts about this is I love learning and I love building companies and learning about building companies. And I actually think one of the reasons I'm really enjoying this journey with my team is every week I get to do a new challenge as a first-time CEO, right? So like the first year it was how do we get 78 people to read our newsletter? Then it was how do we get one person to give us $1 in revenue? Mm-hmm. Right now that's tens of millions in revenue. Mm-hmm. But every week and every quarter you have brand new challenges. And it's like this awesome knowledge experience that you have to take in and learn from smart people and take in a bunch of perspectives. And I think over time, I've learned that if you're not deeply passionate about what you're building, you just won't make it. Mm. So if someone's starting a project or a podcast or a company, and first, if I could be helpful, I'd love to be helpful anyway. I'm at tim@join1440.com. But I think it's like, if you're not deeply passionate about the work you're doing, I would probably stop it. I hate to say that, but it's true because these things are so hard to build. And unless you have the passion for the work and you surround yourself with like incredible, brilliant team members, it's not going to make it.
Yeah. I think being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
That is it. So that's amazing.
That was kind of a doomsday way to end it.
Right?
But,
so what's the non-doomsday?
Okay. The non-doomsday version is
infinite utopian society.
There we go. Yeah. Let me lean into that. Humans are amazing creatures and we love learning.
It's like, yes.
And that's the one thing I'm amazed about every day. If you look at like what people learn about and what they're curious about, we have this question where we ask people like, what do you want? What are you curious about? Mm-hmm. And it's so amazing seeing like the diversity of thought and what people want to learn about. And I just think if you care deeply about knowledge and then you can help other people learn efficiently, a lot of good things come your way, whether that's in business and friendship and mentorship, whatever. I think that's my takeaway.
I love it. I love it. And this has been a very, very in-depth understanding. I think I learned a lot from this conversation.
Right back at you.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think I asked questions, but the thing is though, I think that, you have to like in the process of being able to kind of like, be curious to your point, and kind of have this insatiable, as you say, like kind of like you're wanting to search for knowledge, right? I think that's where it starts in any capacity. So I do love what you're building and I have learned a lot and I'm going to take this away and use it because now it's inspired me to be able to learn random topics that I have always been interested in. And if it's right in front of my face, so easy, know? So, cause the thing is like, I don't even like, there's like 10 books sitting there. I'm like, I should read that. I want that. but I think you're doing an amazing thing.
Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for being here and just sharing all of your expertise and your guidance. I hope that people subscribe and do the newsletter. And then also the community. I think that is going to be the next big thing because people are sick of all of this randomness. And so now you have someone here that is providing it. And so, yay, now you don't have to be faked out. So
yeah, thank you so much for the time and look forward to doing it with you next at Burning Man.
Yes. Right? Oh, yes. Meher is coming too.
Yes, Meher will come too. Yes.
Awesome.